When I started making this atheist converts to Christianity series, I did so because it sure seemed to me like a lot of noteworthy people were converting from atheism to Christianity. And whether it's Ayaan Ali, who used to travel all over the world promoting atheism with Richard Dawkins, or Josh Tinnamen, whose last name I'm still probably not getting right, who was the right-hand man of Richard Dawkins for years and was acknowledged in Dawkins God Delusion. And as I've continued making this series, we've seen a number of professors, academics, comedians, and ordinary people like myself, or users like Darwin for Jesus. And SideBStores, recently rebranded as eX-Skeptic, has a lot of similar stories. But all of these stories are just anecdotal, right? I mean, if an atheist were to hear them, they might find one reason or another to dismiss these testimonies and may say, well, maybe you have a collection of testimonies, but this is not a trend. Bear in mind, these testimonies are to encourage Christians or to help sway someone who's on the fence. And each one is a 10-minute video detailing a multi-year process. And you know, prior to the past few years, we had decades and decades where we were just seeing huge leaps in atheism and religious nuns. The people who would answer nothing in particular when asked their religion. Now the tides have turned. It's almost like something happened in 2020 to 2021, which stopped the ever-increasing amount of religious nuns from increasing to lead us to a point where that is no longer true. And we're going to dive into some data here from Pew Research shortly. But prior to doing so, I wanted to first consider some remarks made by Justin Brearley's article, New Atheism Has Collapsed. The Tide is Turning on Belief. He wrote that, quote, the culture wars have shifted the ground in the dialogue between Christianity and atheism. And he makes a great case for that. He details how Portland philosophy professor Peter Boghossian initially reached out to him in 2014 to debate faith after he authored a book. It was A Manual for Creating Atheists. Well, 4 years later, in 2018, he was astonished that him and his colleagues were able to pass off outlandish theories in academic journals. One example was about dogs engaging in rape culture, but this helped him to realize and expose how grievance studies were infiltrating kind of the whole realm of academia. And these culture wars, critical race theory, have revealed to a lot of atheists out there that maybe atheism isn't the answer after all. It doesn't provide a system of values and beliefs which can counter cultural movements or countercultural movements, which some atheists might view as a threat to the existence of civilization as we know it. Some atheists might note, atheism, it's just a lack of beliefs or the rejection of religious views, nothing more. Thus, it can't provide anything to counter other views, save for saying, I disagree, you've not provided adequate evidence. Let's dive into the numbers via Pew Research. From 2008 to 2018, religious nuns nearly doubled, increasing from approximately 16% to 31%, nearly double in a 10-year time frame. Then look at this. From 2018 to 2023, religious nuns decreased from about 31% down to about 28%. Certainly not a 100% rise like we saw in the years prior, right? So in Gallup, we see a similar trend. From 2008 to 2018, religious nuns increased from 12 to 20%. And then from 2018 to now, we've seen religious nuns stagnant at about 21%. In both cases, we see religious nuns nearly double in one 10-year period. And then over the past 5 years, we've seen them really flatline. They're stagnant or decreasing. And while Brearley argues that it's a cultural phenomenon over things like CRT, and I'm sure that's part of it, given the rhetoric of professors he spoke with like Dawkins, who call themselves culturally Christian, I can see that being a component of this. I see something else here too. honestly, I think seeing the chaos of 2020 and 2021 led to a lot more people being more open to religious views. We saw examples of that in Kat Von D's testimony or Josh Tinnamen's testimony. Conversions, right? They always have a catalyst. That can be one of the more difficult things to properly understand when you're trying to understand a conversion. There's the catalyst. Then there's something which makes them open to conversion. Then there's acceptance. It's not like one thought. It's not like one fact just change someone's mind overnight, right? There's a catalyst, which can be a fact. A catalyst can be a book, and the catalyst creates the opening. And then further research and discovery over a years-long process leads to the acceptance of the truth claim. In this case, Christ is King. He died for our sins. By his wounds we are healed. He resurrected. His disciples saw the resurrected Christ. That led to them going from out of hiding. Whenever Christ was arrested, of course, his disciples, they hid. Whenever he was killed, or whenever he was murdered on the cross, his disciples, they went in hiding. After the resurrection of Christ, they're proclaiming his name. They're proclaiming salvation. They're not worrying about being killed despite being in prison many, many, many times. They're completely different people after the resurrection because of something that happened, i.e. the resurrection. No one else has explained what else might have happened that might have made these disciples so bold whenever they were not quite as bold previously, right? Christ is King. Every knee will bow. Absolutely.